We all know the relationship former President Donald Trump had with members of the media, and we don't need to replay the sound bites. It's exhausting, quite frankly. Our next guest, though, is taking a look at the adversarial relationship between the press and other past presidents. Associate professor at the Medill School of Journalism, Media, Integrated Marketing, and Communications at Northwestern University, John Marshall joins us now. He is author of the book Clash: Presidents and the Press in Times of Crisis. So let's start right there. Why are times of crisis really the key time to look at the relationship with the media? And what do you deduce in your book?
So the reason I focused on times of crisis is because there's always some kind of tense relationship between presidents and the press because their purposes are different. But when we have a crisis in this country, that is really when the forces that are coming into play really make themselves the clearest. And when we start to get precedents for what has shaped us now in terms of the relationship between presidents and the press.
So, I'm curious what you think has happened to that relationship since the Trump presidency. Would you contend that there has been damage done to the relationship between the presidency and the press? And can that damage be fixed? Because the damage I'm talking about, I think we're still dealing with. And that is that we're arguing over the truth versus different opinions on issues. There was such an assault on the truth and such a fire hose of falsehoods and conspiracy theories that came out of this White House that the relationship became very different. Do you agree?
Mika, I think you're absolutely right. I think what was different about the Trump presidency, other presidents before him complained, griped about their press coverage, but Trump made criticizing the press and conspiracy theories and even talking violently about the press at the centerpiece of his presidency and made discrediting the media one of his main focuses. Other presidents before him would always pay lip service to the importance of the First Amendment and the free press, no matter how maybe they felt about it personally, but they expressed its value. Trump did the opposite and consistently talked disparagingly about the role of journalists in a free society. And I think, as you said, that's been very dangerous because now it really allows conspiracy theories to rise up. It makes it that much harder to counter disinformation being expressed by people with bad intentions.
Reading some from the book, quote, President Nixon's relationship with the press was fundamentally different from that of his predecessors. Nixon made assaulting the media and casting journalists as enemies of the American people a central strategy of his administration. He and his top aides entered the White House determined to curb the influence of the Washington press corps. Nixon's strategy of casting the press as an enemy didn't die with the end of his presidency. Conservative leaders and groups nourished the belief that the press is a powerful and dangerous institution that can't be trusted, just as Agnew said it was. However, his war against the press outlived him, spreading through American politics and reaching new heights during Trump's presidency. Trump demonized the people who delivered the bad news about COVID-19. The fake news media is doing everything possible to make us look bad, he tweeted. Sad. He was angry because journalists were chronicling the White House disorganized response to the pandemic. What I think is even more frightening, John Marshall, is that if there were tapes like the Nixon tapes during the Trump years, oh, wait, there were many. There are many tapes. But now we have a party that will play a video of an insurrection and say that's just a peaceful protest. See? I mean, they'll take it to a whole new level in terms of trying to describe the truth.
Right. So, as you said, Nixon cast the press as an enemy, but he pretty much would send his underlings out, Vice President Agnew and others, to disparage the press Nixon would still, by and large, when he talked about the role of the media, would say so positively in public, not behind closed doors, but in public. And as you said, Trump would do just the opposite and very publicly go out and cast the media as the enemy and talk even in violent terms about it. And that really set the stage, I think, for the January 6, 2020 insurrection, because Trump had talks for a year claiming that the election was going to be stolen from him. And in this fractured media environment that we live in today, where people have their own personalized media bubbles that they live in, Trump spread that message to his audience over and over again in the big lie, to the point that people thought that the election had been stolen from him, when in fact it was just the opposite. And Trump and his allies encouraged violence. You know, there's people on talk radio like Glenn Beck saying we need to claw and rake, and that there needs to be blood. We need to go to war. And that message was carried on talk radio, was carried on social media inside these right-wing bubbles. And that's what led us to an attempt to violently overthrow Congress and change the results of the 2020 election.
John, talk a little bit about mistrust of the media and how polls have kind of repeatedly shown that the American public doesn't trust the press anymore, and specifically this idea of the press being kind of part of some elite, because it's a refrain that populists around the world have used. Donald Trump used it as well. It's the elite, and they're against the real people. The people are being, misserved by this group of press who don't represent them. But it's interesting from your book, that's not actually that new. I thought it was something that had been around in American politics for kind of 20, 30 years, but you suggest it goes back beyond that.
Well, there's always been this sort of anti-elitist strain in American politics. And going back to Richard Nixon again, he gave this famous silent majority speech in, I believe it was 1969, where he's saying that, the real Americans, it really almost kind of sounded like Sarah Palin there, real Americans support him, and it's these elites in the media who are the only people who are opposing him, and therefore we shouldn't listen to him. But the irony is that our friends on Fox News, our friends on talk radio, are just as much as part of this supposed elite as any of the people on your show are. But yet their elites are claiming that they're the real Americans, even though they're the ones who are trying to overthrow the results of a democratic election.